Good Saturday morning as we welcome you to the Saturday End Zone show right here on the Spirit Media Network. Glad that you're with us this morning. Week 3 of college football gets kicked off. No matter where you are, grilling and chilling, heading up to the games this afternoon or this morning, wherever you are, we appreciate you tuning in, whether you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, our YouTube channel, Spirit Media Network, or if you're watching this later on our Roku channel, which you can download. Spirit Live is our Roku TV channel. We've got a full show lined up for you today. You don't want to go anywhere. National sports commentator for Fox Sports, he's Tim Brando. He will join us and break down what he's seen over the first couple of weeks in college football and what he expects today. Laura Rutledge with ESPN, SEC Network, SEC Nation. She will join us as well coming up. And Jason Crowder will get things started off first as he's teed up to get things kicked off for us next. He is the sports director with WFCA in French Camp, as well as with the Mississippi State Football Radio Network. A packed show for you today, folks. The Saturday End Zone show rolls on and comes up next with Jason Crowder right here on the Spirit Media Network.
You're more than a patient at KDMC. You're family, worthy of kindness, compassion, and respect. King's Daughters Medical Center, caring for our community like no one else can.
The Outdoorsman Tractor Package is here at Mississippi Ag. Choose a 3 Series John Deere tractor tailored to your horsepower needs and get all the attachments you require for the fall in one convenient package, including a loader, disc, and spreader starting at $315 a month. And as always, you get it all covered by our 10-year warranty. With 0% financing for 60 months, it's a deal that is sure to help you get your food plots ready for the season. Some restrictions apply. See dealer for details. Offer expires 10/31/19.
Digging in my yard, I always call 811 to have my utility lines marked to avoid service interruptions or injury. As CenterPoint Energy says, it's better to call 811 now than 911 later. And if I suspect a gas leak, I leave the area immediately on foot and call CenterPoint Energy and 911 from a safe, remote location. Really?
CenterPoint Energy invests in its infrastructure to help keep you safe. CenterPoint Energy, always there.
Mississippi Hunters, did you know that Vance Sporting Goods has the largest gun selection in the state? Vance carries the lines you know and respect, like Browning and Benelli. And we've got plenty of ammo in stock too. Drop by and check out our new duck hunting section, complete with decoys and accessories. You'll be happy you did. If it's guns, it's at Vance. Vance Sporting Goods.
777 Highway 468 in Brandon, or visit us online.
Owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, butcher blinds, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
Smile is one of the first things most people notice. And for over a decade, Germany Dental has helped change smiles for thousands of people across Mississippi.
I was so embarrassed about my teeth that I never smiled. But now that I have dental implants and cosmetic veneers from Germany Dental, I can't stop smiling. My decision to see Dr. Germany literally changed my life.
Germany Dental, changing lives, one smile at a time. Call 601-825-4746 today.
We welcome you back to the Saturday End Zone show. Hope you're getting ready for week 3, wherever you are. If you're grilling and chilling, we hope you're having a good day as we get ready for week 3 of college football, which sounds absolutely nuts to say when you think about it, because we waited so long for it to get here. Now it's here, and we're so pleased now to be joined by our good friend Jason Crowder with the Mississippi State Radio Network. He's also sports director at WFCA in French Camp. He also is the voice of Lady Bulldog basketball with Mississippi State And I got to say this, you're also the star of the Netflix series, Last Chance U, at least first couple of seasons. I mean, you realize that was going to change things for you, right, being on Netflix?
No, not really. And to be honest with you, Buddy Stevens and some of the players like Ronald Ali, those guys were the stars. I'm just kind of the voice, so to speak, of the program as far as play-by-play. And every once in a while, they'll get my commentary showing my face. But other than that, I had a minor role in it.
It was a lot of fun to turn it on and say, hey, there's my buddy Jason just hanging out on Netflix like it's no big deal, just another day at the office, hanging out with Netflix cameras. But
yeah,
a lot of fun to see you. Yeah, it was an adventure, and it's good to see you enjoying the kind of success that you are. We always enjoy catching up with you, and the job that you do with Mississippi State and WFCA is just second to none. The ultimate consummate professional, and that's why we have you on to talk about Mississippi State. And through 2 games, we've got a sample size of Tommy Stevens. Didn't play in the second half last Saturday. Don't know if he's going to play today against Kansas State. Last we heard, a game-time decision. So we've got a game and a half, basically, to look at Tommy Stevens. What have you seen so far from Tommy that impresses you the most?
Very comfortable, poised. He's about as comfortable with this Joe Moorhead offense as maybe even Trace McSorley. Just a lot of talent there at Penn State, College Station. So it's really hard to have him up under center or, behind center if you're, of course, in shotgun, which most majority offenses are these days. But you get what I'm trying to say. I think that's been the thing that's impressed me the most is because, he's transferred down here, though. And it's not just that he knows the offense. I mean, he's got to get to know his offensive personnel. He's working with new receivers. He's working with a different running back. He's working with a different offensive line. He's even working with a different quarterback coach. I mean, the only thing familiar to him is Joe Moorhead. But he has come in and he's settled in so well. He's been voted team captain, which means to me he's shown great leadership out at practice and during the fall camp when he was battling Keaton Thompson for the job. And let's be honest, when he decided to come to Starkville, I think automatically he had a leg up on Keaton Thompson in getting the job. Unless he just came in and totally tanked and he was overthrowing receivers, really didn't mesh well in the locker room, then he was going to be the starter, in all honesty. And so he was basically handpicked by Joe Moorhead, just like Garrett Schrader. When Moorhead came down to Starkville, was handpicked by him. Then, these are the 2 guys that you're going to see take the majority of the snaps this season. If by the way we saw against Southern Mississippi, the indications there. But back to Tommy Stevens, your question. That's been the thing that has impressed me the most. Is just really come in and started clicking in the locker room and on the field as well.
Kylan Hill, one of the things that I saw our friend Rick Cleveland say this week or last week was Kylan Hill would start for most SEC programs. Would you agree with that? Because I would agree with that. He's been a beast through 2 games.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm trying to think about some of the star tailbacks around the league. Let's see. I think he'd have a leg up at LSU, in that spread offense. Obviously, he was. Rakeem Boyd's pretty good. He's about the only positive thing right now for Arkansas. Georgia, obviously, they're going to have a stable of tailbacks, but Kylan Hill would be one of those. Would he get the majority of the carries at Georgia like he does Mississippi State? Maybe not, because they are so talented there. But, yeah, the thing that's different about him is a lot of times, okay, let's say you get a back that's a big back, like a Rakeem Boyd, and he runs with a lot of power. All right, then you have a scat back. This guy is a power back and a scat back all combined in one. And he runs with reckless abandon every time he touches the big skin. He's going to either leap over you, he's going to lower his pads and run over you, he's going to spin and get out of a tackle. He just runs like he doesn't have the power Herschel Walker had, but the way he runs the football between the tackles reminds me a little bit of Herschel Walker. Get in my way, I'm either going to run over you, going to jump over you, going to spin it. I'm just going to run with reckless abandon. And that's what Herschel Walker did. I mean, the kid's just as talented as they come. And unfortunately, this probably is going to be his final year at Stark.
You think so?
Well, it depends. That's kind of the negative Mississippi State alum side of me going, oh, man, he's probably not going to stay. The way his numbers are so far, I don't know. I think that at this point, let's say his season goes the way it's going so far through 2 games. Say it's kind of like that every game. He gets either over 100 yards or he's close to 100 yards. He's big. In fact, you're in Mississippi State and wins. Then why wouldn't he? I mean, Josh Robinson went out too early. Josh Robinson, although some would say, I don't think Josh Robinson's going to do anything more his senior year to impress the scouts. No, maybe not, but then he'd be a year better ready for the NFL. Kylan Hill, as physical as he is, fast as he is, as comfortably as he has come in and jumped from one system to another, which is a little bit easier to do for tailbacks than it is quarterbacks. But I don't know, it may seem like he would be ready for the NFL. I mean, if you're going to come out. So you look at the other factors. Is he going to injure himself or this, that, and the other? So those are some of the things he'll have to weigh, and obviously it depends on the running back class, coming out and things like that. But I would love to see him stay 2 years, but there's already talk of him jumping.
I saw something else the other day that I'm sure you would agree with about Kylan, is that he's a cheat code. I mean, he's just a cheat code. Spin button, jump, just no matter the button you hit on the controller, he's a cheat code.
Right.
So take your pick. I mean, you mentioned it. He'll jump over you, run through you, run around you, run past you. It doesn't matter. He's been an absolute joy to watch so far. And we knew he was going to be primed for a breakout season. Now, switching to the defense, you talked about some of the negative Nancy's within the Mississippi State fan base. Every fan base has them. There's going to be some out there right now that say, what's wrong with our defense? Well, when you draft or when you graduate, the players at Mississippi State did, all-star players that are now playing in the NFL, what would you say to State fans about the defense and what has been your analysis through 2 games?
Well, through 2 games, as you just said, it's 2 games that a lot of these guys who got experience a year ago are trying to be the leaders. They're not leaning on Jonathan Abram in the secondary. They're not leaning up front on Montez Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons. And the biggest departure has been Jeffrey Simmons for the fact that you have a Chauncey Rivers that can maybe be that Montez Sweat. You really don't have right now a Jeffrey Simmons. So that's the biggest thing. It's just getting guys to grow up quickly and being leaders, not just experienced players, but being leaders. And look, they're not those 3 guys, okay? They're going to be their own players. I mean, Jeffrey Simmons is rare, okay? So in some cases, Jonathan Abram is rare in just their football skill, their toughness, their knowledge of the game. Maybe a Montez Sweat, too. Those guys don't just fall in your lap often, and you had 3 of them on one defense. So as you mentioned, 3 first-rounders. So it is that. These guys have got to grow up. And everybody was singing praises to Bob Shoop a season ago. He's a great defense player. We've got to do everything we can to sign him. And now all of a sudden it's like, some people are going, and I'm not saying everybody, but you hear some of this, oh, my goodness, well, this defense just looking terrible. They can't tackle this, that, and the other. Well, I understand the frustration, but you got to understand, I think Bob Shoop's a great defense coordinator. I think he is going to do a fine job in Starkville. Let him get things settled in with these players. They're going to get better as the season goes on. We all knew this was not going to be the Iron Curtain defense from a season ago. So lay off everybody's back just a little bit. And Bob Shoop, as much praise as he got a season ago, and he deserves it. He's a great defense coordinator, but he still had a Jeffrey Simmons. He still had a Jonathan Abram and a Montez Sweat and those guys. And he hasn't had his full linebacking core yet. Willie Gay hasn't even played yet. Errol Thompson's gone out there, though, and missed some tackles, and people are, the sky is falling. It's going to be okay. And we have to remember, he hasn't had all those pieces of the puzzle just yet. Has State lost the game? No. That could rear its ugly head at some point soon. I get it. I understand. But defense is going to be okay. I think they'll be fine. We didn't expect the Iron Curtain, like I said just a moment ago, to beat a dead horse. And to talk about the 3, first-rounders, that's beating a dead horse. It is what it is for this defense. I think they're going to be okay. They're thin, and will be thin all season long up front. But they're getting some young guys in action, and that'll pay dividends in the future. And even as the season goes on, because they're having to grow up fast.
He's Jason Crowder, sports director at WFCA in French Camp, also with the Mississippi State Radio Network. When you look at Joe Moorhead, when you guys hired Joe Moorhead, I love the hire. I love Joe Moorhead. I love the blue collar. I love how matter-of-fact he is. One of the things that he said this summer, saw him with Marty and McGee, thought it was a great admission on his part. He said, the whole what's your ring size thing, he said, I was wrong in that. I didn't have a problem with it. I didn't, as a fan, didn't care. Said, hey, that's great. He's trying to motivate the guys. I get it. But for him to publicly on Marty and McGee say, that's what I learned from last year. That's what I wish I could have back. I could do that differently, maybe say that privately. This is a guy that seems to be very, very transparent. You've had dealings with him, and I've heard great things about everyone who's dealt with him one-on-one. That really impressed me, Jason, that he would voluntarily say that to Marty and McGee on the SEC Network and ESPN, that he would just come out and say that. What have we learned about Joe Moorhead? What have you learned about Joe Moorhead from last year to this year?
I think he's realizing some mistakes that he made a season ago. One, as you were just mentioning, but I think others in play calling, maybe trying to install too much of his offense. And he had told me, at least in spring practice prior, that he would install some of it, but there would be a major chunk of what Dan Muller left, a part of his playbook, to fit these guys' skill set. And I think we saw some of it, but then again, we saw some of the maybe trying to do too much. And I think he learned a little bit. It's basically like my good friend John Hendrick, the head football coach at Jackson State, said that what he's having to do right now is take what he's got, put it in a pot, and make it taste good. And I think that that's basically what Moorhead needed to do last season. I know that because of them probably trying to run a little bit too much of his offense last season, it's helped this year with this year's personnel, like a Colin Hill, because I think he could see Saquon Barkley in the making right there with Colin Hill. I mean, when Joe Moorhead came on campus, that was his back. But I think that he's learned a lot about the SEC. I think he's learned a lot about the South. There's a difference. Some people say, well, at the end of the day, football's football. Yes, I agree with that in a way, but there's just different ways, different defenses, different type personnel that you're seeing, different coaches that you're facing each week in the Southeastern Conference. It's just a different culture. So I think he's learned some of those things, and we're seeing some of that pay dividends. So the defense is, he doesn't want to say bend but don't break. He said that in his press conference this past week. But defense is a little bit behind the offense right now as far as just production. And if Tommy Stevens can play today, or at least come back pretty soon, I think this offense is just going to continue to get better. But I saw some great things out of Garrett Schrader last week.
Let's look around the SEC. I know that you keep an eye around the SEC, obviously, with SEC Update. Yeah. There's great production on your part, giving SEC Update to all of us across Mississippi and points beyond. It's a great production on your part, a great service that you do. And when you look outside of the state of Mississippi and the rest of the SEC, LSU obviously impressed with what they did in Austin. And I thought that LSU team, just when you thought Texas, they would punch back, LSU would always counter. And I thought that was pretty impressive for LSU to hang 45 points. Yes, it's at Texas. A lot of folks are like, Texas is back. I'm not sure exactly what they're back from, but people were like, Texas is back. I'm like, back from being terrible. They've won one championship in the last 50 years with Vince Young, worldly all-star player, that you might get once in a blue moon. So back from what, I'm not quite sure. But LSU with 45 in Austin. This is a different LSU offense. You look across the rest of the SEC, Tennessee, what in the world's going on with Tennessee? There's a lot of storylines already just 2 weeks into the season. We get ready for week 3 today. What stood out to you through the first couple of weeks?
I think LSU with that offense down at Baton Rouge, boy, do they look different. Boy, do they call a game different. And I think it's made a huge difference. Now, obviously, Texas, I think, has some weapons offensively, so that's why you saw the shootout. But to see LSU go in and do what it did, no longer the I formation, no longer the quarterback just turning and just tossing it back to the tailback and that Les Miles smash mouth type offense. This is fun and gun, basically. And I think it's going to make a big difference in their team this year. That kind of stood out to me. Tennessee's unpreparedness, and just, did we expect too much out of Tennessee? Yeah, I think so. I think people were just a little bit too, Tennessee's going to turn it around. I mean, it's year 2 under Jeremy Pruitt. And, he had a pretty good recruiting, year. He's gotten some players in. But are you really thinking that all these kids coming out of high school, all of a sudden they're going to make a big difference for Tennessee? Their freshman year just out of the gate, all of a sudden they're supposed to make this team so much better? No, because that means those guys would have to come in and lead. But I still think just the way Tennessee is it's just been Tennessee. I feel for them. They've had some bad things go against them that you have to just kind of slap your face and say, well, yep, that's Tennessee, or put your face palm is what I meant to say. As far as anything really else standing out to me, maybe Missouri's loss in week 1 was kind of, surprising. Maybe South Carolina, they've got that tough schedule, but boy, did they look good, though. Granted, against a team not at the caliber of North Carolina. They've got some tests coming up, but I thought they they were impressive without Bentley, and they're back at quarterback Ryan Helinski really showed out and looked really, really good, really, really comfortable in the offense. So I would think probably just to say, I think the biggest surprise right now has been, to me, LSU, just with their offense and the way it looks, or what's not surprised, but what has stood out to me as far as the big story in the SEC right now.
You do a phenomenal job, Jason. We always appreciate catching up with you and what you do for SEC football and high school football, from the Mississippi State Radio Network to calling basketball games for the Lady Dogs in Mississippi State, and, of course, your time at WFCA as sports director. And always appreciate catching up with you. I know that we'll do it again. Tell folks how they can listen to your pregame show before the game today.
All right, well, you can tune in on WFCA.FM. That is online for a lot of you listening in the Jackson area. You might be able to catch us on the vehicle, or in the vehicle rather, on the way to the game if you're headed to Starkville, Mississippi, and it's on 107.9 WFCA. We go on 3.5 hours prior to kick.
And you do a good job. I mean, I've had a chance to listen coming up before the games that we cover, and, of course, had a chance to hang out with you a couple times in the press box, and you guys do a really, really good job. Look forward to seeing you soon, my friend, and appreciate your time as always.
Thank you. God bless, and we'll talk to you down the road, Jason.
He's Jason Crowder, sports director at WFCA and with the Mississippi State Radio Network. We'll take a break, come back with more right here on the Saturday End Zone on the Spirit Media Network.
What if you really could have it all?
At Exit Realty,
We believe in making dreams
come true.
We believe
the home you want
is right there.
is right there.
And we'll help you find it.
Thoroughly trained, passionately committed
And always on your side.
You can count on us.
every step of the way. And you thought we just sold real estate?
We are Exit Realty.
Think smart.
Think Exit.
You're more than a patient at KDMC. You're family, worthy of kindness, compassion, and respect. King's Daughters Medical Center, caring for our community like no one else can.
With 2 boys, I know about suspicious odors.
But CenterPoint Energy taught me something important. If I smell rotten eggs, it might be a gas leak. I should leave on foot immediately and call both CenterPoint Energy and 911 from a safe location. I also never store flammables like paint or gasoline near my natural gas appliances. One spark is all it takes to ignite fumes.
CenterPoint Energy provides tips to help you keep your family safe. CenterPoint Energy, always there.
Doorsman Tractor Package is here at Mississippi Ag. Choose a 3 Series John Deere tractor tailored to your horsepower needs and get all the attachments you require for the fall in one convenient package, including a loader, disc, and spreader starting at $315 a month. And as always, you get it all covered by our 10-year warranty. With 0% financing for 60 months, it's a deal that is sure to help you get your food plots ready for the season. Some restrictions apply. See dealer for details. Offer expires 10/31/19.
Owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, butcher block islands, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
Mississippi Hunters, did you know that Vance Sporting Goods has the largest gun selection in the state? Vance carries the lines you know and respect, like Browning and Benelli. And we've got plenty of ammo in stock too. Drop by and check out our new duck hunting section, complete with decoys and accessories. You'll be happy you did. If it's guns, it's at Vance. Vance Sporting Goods.
777 Highway 468 in Brandon, or visit us online.
Hey, we welcome you to the Saturday End Zone Show. So glad you could join us from wherever you're watching or listening. Thanks for hanging out with us, as we're so pleased now to be joined by national commentator for Fox. He is the one, the only, Tim Brando. How are you, my friend? College football season is here, and we've got to catch up with you when it's college football season. So football season it brings out so many emotions. What does it bring for you?
Oh, I'm giddy every week. You know, I can't wait to open the next gift on Monday. Like, we can normally find out the Monday after our Saturday games, where we're going to be in 2 weeks. So basically 12 days out, we get a new package and we find out where we're going to go. And, this week, obviously, the game we've got today is a matchup between Michigan State and Arizona State. But I found out this past Monday that I'll be heading to TCU on the 21st for the Battle of the Metroplex, SMU and TCU. And I already knew where I'd be the following Friday, which is a great game between Penn State, who I just saw and is better than advertised. I saw them last week against Buffalo, and they'll be playing at Maryland. And I think we all know what Mike Loxley's team just did to Syracuse, don't we, from last week? So that's an unbelievable Friday game that Spencer Coley Harvey and I will have on Friday. A great Friday night lights Big Ten game. Maryland, by the time we get to that game, they should be ranked, in my opinion. They hung 63 on Syracuse, for crying out loud. So if they can hold serve this weekend and get to that game on the 27th undefeated, we've got a heck of a Friday night game between Penn State and Maryland. Old rivals, by the way, in their independent days when Bobby Ross was coaching at Maryland, or Jerry Claiborne, and back in the day, and Joe Powell was at Penn State. So that could be a blossoming Big Ten rivalry, if both teams, can get relevant at the same time. And right now they are. So that's what it means to me. I'm excited every week when I find out where I'm going to be going, 2 weeks later. So it keeps the mojo working always.
You talked about Maryland, of course, what they did here this past Saturday. Through the first couple of weeks of college football, a great slate today. There's, the games are getting better week to week. Week 1 was okay. We had a great week 2 last week. Through the first couple of weeks of college football, you mentioned Maryland. Anything else that surprised you, maybe was disappointing to you? I mean, what stood out to you the first couple of weeks?
I'm disappointed in 2 teams that I thought would do really well because I love their schedules. And I thought they were talented enough to make splashes this year. And they still may. And by the way, I haven't given up on either one of them, but they both have certainly learned that they got a lot of work to do. Probably the biggest disappointment has got to be Michigan. Now, it's not so much that they were pushed by Army. I mean, Army almost beat Oklahoma last year. So that's a team that's really tough to play, especially early. So it's not so much that they were pushed to overtime and barely beat Army. That would happen to a lot of teams. It's the way they looked in doing so. You've got Shea Patterson, one of the truly great spread RPO quarterbacks. I mean, look what he did at Ole Miss. I mean, Jason, you got to remember what he was able to do when he was running Hugh Freeze's offense. Why Jim Harbaugh won't give Josh Gaddis the keys to the offense and let it go, let it hum, is beyond me. I don't get it. They were playing that game exactly the way Army wanted them to play that game, like in a phone booth between the hash marks last week, and really should have lost. They really should have lost that game. And then the other team is Nebraska, who had a 17-0 lead at the half, and clearly in the time that Scott Frost was gone from Nebraska, I gather the team, he's just had to learn the hard way that his players don't know how to finish games. They got a lead, they relaxed, they had the ball after a turnover with 5 minutes left with a chance to put the game away, and they went 3 and out with 2 bad calls offensively that enabled Colorado to get the ball back, come back, and send the game to overtime, and then win the game in overtime. So those 2 teams, I think, have been disappointments to me. I do think that both of them can revive themselves and evolve into top 25, if not top 10 teams. Michigan, particularly because of the home schedule. Nebraska has got a lot of wood to chop because they're just a couple of weeks now from playing Ohio State at home, and I thought that they would beat Colorado. They should have beaten Colorado and would be in a great position to really push Ohio State when they play them the end of this month. But they had a very favorable schedule in their conference and in their division, which is weaker than the Big Ten East. I thought Nebraska could be that team, and I don't think it will be. I think it'll either be Iowa, Minnesota, potentially Wisconsin again. I think a lot of us may be guilty of overlooking Wisconsin with Jonathan Taylor. They put a real whooping on their opposition the first 2 weeks and have physically dominated teams. So maybe Wisconsin is back from what was a really disappointing year a season ago for Paul Chryst, their head coach. But those are the two that jump out at me as being disappointments.
You mentioned Michigan. I guess what was more surprising beyond them struggling with Army. I mean, you mentioned Army contending with Oklahoma last year and keeping that game, like you said, in a phone book in between the hash marks. But how Michigan celebrated after the game, that got a lot of reaction across the country. Is that reaction warranted, the criticism, how they reacted after beating Army? Because I saw tweets and all kinds of things everywhere like, hey, this is not Ohio State. This isn't Wisconsin, who you just referenced. It's Army, and this is how you're reacting, like a relief almost, the way they celebrated. Is the criticism warranted, and what did you make of that?
Well, remember, this was an Army team that won 11 games the year before, and probably was looking at winning every game on their schedule and claiming easily the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. So vastly undervalued by a lot of fans and a lot of people on the internet, in my opinion. That said, the point that you're making about that kind of celebration from the team itself in the aftermath of the game may be warranted, because it looked like they had just beaten Ohio State, not beaten Army. But that defense had to win the game, Jason. I mean, their offense did nothing. They were giving up short fields. Their offense had turned it over many times. Without Michigan, with a pass interception on a 4th and 2 play near the goal line, trailing 14-7. I think Army wins that game in regulation, and maybe with ease. They were thoroughly outplayed from an offensive standpoint, but I think the defense, what probably forced that was that they won the game with a defensive stop. When you get a defensive stop to end a game and you've gone to overtime, the players probably felt like, thank God, that this is over and we got out of here. I think they were just so enthused that it was over that they didn't have to play on because they were pretty tired, that they felt like, well, yeah, we're going to – our fans over here are going nuts. We need to go celebrate with them. So I'm not going to rain on their parade like the internet did, but if you take a big snapshot from 30,000 feet, I can understand why some people are troubled by what they saw, okay? So part of me wants to defend those kids, but another part of me understands why they're critics of what happened. I think it's sometimes important for us to remember that sometimes games are close because the school with less reputation is really a lot better than you thought, and we need to give more credit to the teams that kind of came out of nowhere and won. That was one of the things that troubled me about Tennessee's fan base reacting to Georgia State, the loss to Georgia State. I don't care what their record was last year. Dan Ellington, that quarterback for them, was and is a great player. And he made plays and broke tackles and did things that a lot of SEC quarterbacks haven't done. And you got to respect the fact that the opposition plays well. I think really it's very noticeable that not just among fans, but even some media are always quick to point out what's wrong with the school with the big name versus what was right with the school with the little name. And I think we've got to keep that in mind from time to time, especially early in a season. We're in week 3 today. Week 3. So how much do we really know? We think we know, but we really don't. It's been pointed out to me many times on Twitter in the last few weeks. Brando, what were you thinking about Michigan? What were you thinking about Nebraska? So, it's true for me. It's true for everybody.
You referenced the Ellington kid moments ago. Tennessee is 0-2 for the first time since 1988. What do you make of that? Is this a situation where Jeremy Pruitt inherited a situation at Tennessee that, hey, it's going to take a couple of years to get them out of the mire and the muck and get them back to being Tennessee? Because we keep hearing that term. Oh, Texas is back. When is Tennessee going to be back? Is it more that Pruitt inherited a terrible situation and he's trying to put his fingerprints on it, coming from the Saban coaching tree and get Tennessee back to what they once were? Or is this something else? Well, what do you make of what's going on in Knoxville?
Well, I'm a little tired of hearing about this Saban tree thing, okay? Derek Dooley came from the Saban tree too, didn't he?
That's true.
Yeah, he did. Hiring these apparent, Saban clones doesn't always work. You can't go in there and try to be Nick when you don't have the lofty record and the hardware to go with it. And I don't think, honestly, to be perfectly frank with you, I don't think Jeremy is a clone of Nick, because if he were, he'd do a better job in front of the podium, because he's making a lot of mistakes in these press conferences. What he's saying is, they need to get a public relations guy with him right now.
No.
Because this is not what fans either want or need to hear. That's part of the problem. The other issue is, unlike Texas and unlike Florida and unlike Oklahoma and other places where, and LSU years ago when Saban got there and took over, when you're trying to resuscitate a program, a major program that's been down, you need to have a great recruiting base. Tennessee does not have a great recruiting base. The state itself is not, as you know, not good enough. You've got to go out and get players that are big-time talents from elsewhere. And they have not been able to do that with any degree of consistency since, the Fulmer regime finally came to an end. And, I think Philip can help them through this, whether it's with Jeremy or with someone else. The problem Philip's got is Pruitt was his guy. Philip's got to navigate his way through that and help him as much as he possibly can. But I will also say this, and I don't mind, as you're well aware, Jason, I don't mind alienating some fan bases when I speak the truth. Tennessee fans have only themselves to blame. While they're out there on every imaginable social network hanging this guy in effigy, I'll remind them that it was one of their biggest fans with a media mouthpiece, my old friend Clay Travis, that led the charge to make sure Greg Schiano did not get hired. And in so doing, they got the athletic director fired for offering the job to Greg Schiano. A deeper dive into the Schiano files would have disclosed that what he was alleged to have been part of at Penn State was at best a reach. And the other aspect of it would have been the guy was a proven winner as a college head coach at Rutgers. And because of his ties to the Northeast and his ability to go into places like New Jersey to get talent, he would have been able to infuse a lot of, I think, outstanding recruits into that state. He spent some time in Florida because of his time as a head coach in Tampa. I think he would have done a really good job. But this was a clear-cut case of a media mob and an internet mob making sure that, by God, he didn't get that job. Somebody else was going to get it. So you got exactly who you wanted, Tennessee. All right? You made your bed. Sleep in it. I'm not cry me a river. I am not going to be that sympathetic to their plight as their season comes undone.
He's Tim Brando, national sports commentator for Fox Sports. Arizona State, Michigan State coming up later today on Fox. Hope you'll catch him there. What's interesting, we talk about Tennessee and their fan base got involved. Clay Travis gets involved, and they get the results.
And by the way, I like Clay.
I do too.
I do.
Yeah.
But this is an example, Jay. This is an example when you allow your fandom to get in the way of the business of sports. College football is a business. I got a lot of guys, friends of mine, that are in the broadcasting business that are also fans of their team. Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart love USC. Petros Papadakis loves his former team captain there. They were all clamoring about Clay Helton's air raid offense. Because in their heart of hearts, they believe they're bigger and stronger than everybody, and they should be able to line up in the I formation and pound it on 3rd and 1, and they want it to look like student body right, student body left all the time, and that's just not what college football is today. Clay Helton loses his quarterback to injury a couple of weeks ago, and he finds this guy, Kedon Slovis, who goes out and breaks all these records last week when they beat Stanford at home, and they're doing it in the air raid. Well, you know what? That's a good thing. You should be happy about what's going on here. Just because it doesn't look the way you want it to look, if you're ringing up W's and getting 500 or more yards of offense, you should be pretty happy with that. What I'm saying to you is you can be an accomplished player or broadcaster, but down deep, if you're a fan of a school, your emotions will take you over, and you may not necessarily do what's right because your emotions got the better of you. That's my point.
I think what's interesting when you look at what's going on at Tennessee, and then you look down at Baton Rouge, because this is what's interesting. The new look offense, that has taken a lot of the headlines over the last week, and they should. But once upon a time, there was a discussion about whether or not Ed Orgeron was the right guy for LSU. There was also a time that the Tiger faithful, they weren't as crazy about the decision to make him the guy to lead the program. And now, fast forward, here we are. The Tigers seem to be a lock for the college football playoff, at least now here in week 3. What's most impressed you about how Ed Orgeron has handled the situation and run the LSU program?
He listened, he learned, and he grew as a coach. Mm-hmm. You know, when I was doing my show Football Saturdays and he was going into his first year, I talked to him, and I was just amazed at how much he had grown, how much more prepared for this job he was. And last year, you may recall, Jason, everybody said, oh, they might only win 6 or 7 games. I said they'd win 10 minimum. And they won 10, and they should have won 11 easily. And could have won 12 when you think about it. You know, they sort of let the Florida game get away from them. You know, this year, because of the addition of Joe Brady, which is another, you know, that's delegating and understanding that you have to delegate if you're going to be successful as a head coach. You have to put trust in the people that surround you. Steve Ensminger, a lot of fans didn't like that hire either as offensive coordinator. I knew Steve Ensminger from 40 years ago when he was sharing time at quarterback with the late David Woodley on Charlie McClendon's last team. Steve Ensminger, just because he was a tight ends coach doesn't mean he knows offense. He knows offense big time. People were saying, well, you know, you lost Matt Canada. He goes to Maryland. Where's the next sexy offensive coordinator hire? You got all this money to spend like you did on Dave Aranda. Go get a big name. Well, you know, you don't have to have a big name. The next big name may be just down the street. Enter Joe Brady, who, by the way, would not have left the Saints and Sean Payton were it not for a relationship with Orgeron that was, I think, going back to Steve Ensminger. Steve Ensminger helped put that thing together. So he has no pride of authorship. It's not like he has to be in total control of the offense. He said, yeah, we need help in the red zone. We need somebody that can help us with our wide receivers and our quarterback and develop an offense within the 20 that enables us to score more points, to win games. You know, Tom Herman was the guy all those fans in Baton Rouge were clamoring for. And Tom's dream job was Texas. And so for Ed to go in there and win that game and to do it with an offense that looked Herman-esque and was being authored by a young, up-and-coming quarterbacks and receivers coach who's helping with the red zone package, working in concert with the veteran Steve Ensminger, it would not have happened. So, all of the pundits weren't aware of how really great Steve Ensminger was as a football mind. And a lot of those pundits knew just enough to know, well, this is a good old boy hire. He's been coaching a position coach. We don't like it. You know, you lost Matt Canada. Who are you bringing in? Well, the pundits don't always know either. You know, I had a better understanding because I know Steve Ensminger well. He's only a couple of years younger than me. He was a senior in 79. I had just gotten married and moved down in 78. And I covered him when I was 23 years old. He was 21, turning 22. So, you can capture lightning in a bottle in a lot of different ways. And it was really fun to see, Jason. But during the week, Joe Brady, the young up-and-comer that's lighting up this offense with his vertical passing game, empty backfield, 5 wides and all that, he's tweeting about what a great guy Ensminger is. Man, I'm up in the booth, and my guy Ensminger just wants me to wing it. We're having a blast. I don't know that Steve has ever tweeted in his life. I don't know that Steve even knows what Twitter is. But Brady's out there going, yeah, my guy Ensminger is the best. It's like a paternal thing going on. He's like a surrogate big brother, to Joe Brady. So these kinds of stories can happen. I give Coach O a lot of credit for enabling these guys to have power and to do their jobs. When Ed was at Ole Miss, he was your typical old line coach that had just become a head coach. He wanted to coach every aspect of the game and did not see the big picture. And in the time that he spent down at New Orleans for a year with Sean Payton, he learned a lot of football. When he went back to USC and eventually became the interim coach, I think he learned even more. And then after the USC thing happened and Kiffin was run out of there, and he was the interim at USC, but did not get the head coaching job. You know, he wanted that job desperately, didn't get it. And he spent a year out of coaching that year. And in that year, he spent time making the rounds in the media. He was doing daily radio talk shows in Baton Rouge. He developed some friendships, went to a lot of other coaches' camps. And I think Orgeron just borrowed a little bit of what he'd seen elsewhere. And when he came back to be a head coach, after becoming the interim head coach, he was ready. You know, he knew that it would be different this time. So I think it's one of the potentially great success stories in the history of coaching, what's going on, especially since he's from down there. You know, that he's one of them, so to speak.
It's paid off huge dividends, 45 points at Texas, at Austin.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm seeing tweets Saturday night. You know, we're watching the game and seeing folks comment and say things like, what century is this? Seeing LSU go empty and 5 wide and Burrow throwing for close to 500 yards. I mean, it's insane to see just how explosive this offense is. And there's a lot of folks that say now LSU could upset the power structure, if you will, in the SEC West. Do you agree with that? I mean, again, it's just week 3, but certainly what they showed at Texas.
Yeah, I put my top 10 out earlier in the week, as you know, and I've got a number 3 now behind Clemson and Alabama. And somebody said to me, did you think at all about putting in at 2? And I said, no. You know, until that game is played and they actually get over that mental as well as physical hump, LSU at 3 is about as high as I can go. So, you know, if they play poorly a few times between now and the Alabama game, I might drop them. You know, Georgia it was a tough call to put them ahead of Georgia. But I don't think anyone, including Georgia, has a road win this year any better than LSU's. That was a very significant road victory. So that's why I've got them, you know, where I have them. Do they have the potential to go into Tuscaloosa and win? Absolutely they do. And without question, they should have supreme confidence when they go in there. But now what they've got to do, Jason, is they have got to prove how they can roll with a full cup of success. You know, not a half a cup, but a full cup. There are a lot of games to be played between now and then. You know, you got Auburn, you got Florida, you got some really big games within the conference to get you to that point. And we'll see. But, yeah, I think that it changes the narrative without question. And last year I certainly was one of those championing this narrative. Alabama had no peer. They were blowing people out by 30-plus points, and so they were not prepared for Clemson when they played them in the national championship. I don't care how gaudy their record and their margin of victory was. They just were not prepared. They will be a better prepared team if they happen to get through it than they were a year ago because I think Auburn can challenge them, and I certainly think LSU is their greatest challenge. And if they do get Georgia in the SEC championship, and I don't see any reason why they shouldn't, Jake Fromm will give them a great go, too. We may be seeing the SEC getting back to that point now where it was between 2006 and 2013 when there were seven straight national champions and 4 different teams. You know, we may be getting to that point again. It's basically been Alabama, and then recently Alabama, Georgia, and then everybody else. I don't think that's the case this year.
Speaking of Alabama, the boys in Tuscaloosa, I'm sure that they're just now getting over the nicks and the bumps that they suffered with those juggernauts at Duke and New Mexico State. I mean, I know how you and I and many others not clad in crimson and white, how we feel about the Tide's non-conference schedule. We just talked about LSU with a tough game, non-conference game at Texas. You mentioned LSU should be better prepared for that game in Tuscaloosa than they were a year ago. Could this year be, this is going to sound crazy, could this year be the year that Alabama's lack of a non-conference schedule, lack of toughness in their non-conference schedule, could this be the year that maybe it comes back to haunt them?
I really don't think so.
Yeah.
Because this system is such a brand-oriented system. It's just built for success for every team that has a brand name. And no one's got a better brand than Alabama. So, there's nothing to suggest that strength of schedule means a damn thing to this committee. And as long as that's the case, then, I don't see Alabama or Clemson being anything but rubber stamped. So really it's a race for two positions, not 4. probably the number of teams that are going for those 2 spots are somewhere in the area of 6 to 8 teams, and that's about it. And I think that's another reason why we need to go to 8, because we need to open it up and enable more teams and more geographic locations to have opportunities to get in, to keep interest up, to make the game more national in scope. I just don't see it. And I saw what Nick had to say last week when he was quizzed about the schedule. And I don't disagree with all of what he said. I think when he turns the tables and he gets a little snarky with the reporter and says, I'll tell you what, you make the calls and see what kind of responses you get, and if you can get somebody better for us to play, then we'll play him. That's about power and control on Nick's part. You know, he could have done without that. He's better than that. But what he's saying about, you know, playing 10 legitimate games, nine conference games, and a couple of, you know, nothing but power conference teams, I don't think we need to necessarily go to nothing but power conference teams. I think enabling great FCS programs like North Dakota State and South Dakota have proven they can play with good people. And that's still good for football, but there needs to be a uniform measuring stick where everybody's playing the same number of conference games, and it ought to be 9, and everybody's playing at least 2 other Power 5 teams non-conference. Put some stipulations in there where the playing field is made more level. It's just not right now. So he and I are in agreement on most things. I mean, we are. But his defense mechanism kicks in, and I think part of that is just the absolute manipulation of the media that someone in his position can always perform. And, of course, his fan base is all in, and he can say whatever he wants for the fan base to follow him. And that's just that. A lot of brainwashing takes place there. There was no need for him to go that route with the reporter and say what he did. But when you're in his position and you live in an insular world, everybody around you is going, yeah. You turn it around and say that to the reporter. The reporter's question was not only a good question, it deserved a follow-up. Mm-hmm. It really did. But, you know, Nick will get into that bully pulpit from time to time and push people around. And that's unfortunate because he and I really agree on most things. And I do believe he wants to change. You know, I have incredible respect for his coaching ability and his knowledge of what's best for the game itself. I think he'd be a great commissioner for college football when he finally does quit coaching. But Nick can't let it go sometimes, you know. Some might say, you know, Brando, sometimes you're a little too absolute in your beliefs. That's true. I've got strong opinions. Well, he can be a little absolute in his, too. I think that there are a lot of times when I wish that I hadn't gone so far. I think Nick probably, I bet you Miss Terry said something to him about that. I bet she did. I bet she did when he got home.
Your neighbors here to the east, of course, they want to hear your take on the first couple of weeks with Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Starting with Mississippi State, you know, Tommy Stevens looks to be the guy that Joe Moorhead needed the entire time to really unlock that offense, the way that Moorhead wants to run it. Kylan Hill seems to be an elite back. You know, we had a sports writer here in Mississippi say Kylan Hill would start for most SEC teams, not just Mississippi State. And that Ole Miss, they needed that win bouncing back against Arkansas. You know, it just looked bad against Memphis, looked terrible. Defensively, they seem to be better. Offense might be finally catching up. What stands out to you when you see the Mississippi teams, both Ole Miss and Mississippi State, through the first couple of weeks?
Tommy Stevens is exactly what Moorhead needs. And I can tell you, I know now why he left Penn State. He was really going to be pushed and was not guaranteed to hold on to that job. And I believe in my heart of hearts that his dad wanted that kind of guarantee, and he wasn't going to get it at Penn State. Moorhead really needed Tommy Stevens and through the transfer portal, and I think that's one of the good things about the transfer portal. He was able to get that done. So I think Mississippi State has a team and a chance to upset somebody big in the SEC. You know, that's one of those games I was mentioning LSU. How do you roll with a full cup of success? Every time you see Mississippi State's location on the LSU schedule, it's problematic. They get them at the right time. So, you know, that could be one of those, you know, you're thinking, if you're an LSU fan today, you're thinking about, well, you know, we'll take care of this with the next bit. We'll get to Auburn, then Bama, and totally forget Mississippi State. You know, you can lose that game. I mean, you can lose that game. And it's happened in the past. So I think Mississippi State is legit. I see them as an 8-win, maybe even a 9-win team. Ole Miss just needed time before they played a team as good as Memphis. That's another one of those. I don't know why Ole Miss has always played that game, other than the whole it's close by, you don't take a bus to Memphis, but it's never been in their best interest. Game always meant more to Memphis than it did to Ole Miss, but Memphis was legitimately better and a 5-point favorite. And, McIntyre is making that defense better, no question. You got a great defensive coordinator there now. And Rich Rod, I think with Corral is going to be fine. They just absolutely needed more time to get that engine revved up before they played Memphis. I was actually very impressed with Ole Miss's defensive performance in that game with Memphis. I really was. And, I think they may win more than people anticipate. I think a lot of people just think, can we get to a bowl? And, the Egg Bowl, by the time we get there, I wouldn't be shocked at all if one of the teams is already bowl eligible and the other team is maybe one game away from bowl eligibility. I would not be shocked if that happened.
College football, we're glad that it's here, and I can't tell you how much we always appreciate you. We know your schedule is incredibly busy. We know that for you to take time to do these interviews, and of course we hear you and see you everywhere. And so for you to stop by and talk to us, it's a blessing. And we're thankful that you took a few minutes with us today. And I hope that we can do this again as this season unfolds, because we've got a lot of storylines to follow this year. And
yes, we do.
Again.
Yes, we do. And I can't wait to talk to you again, Jason. I mean that.
He's Tim Brando, national sports commentator with Fox Sports. Here on the Saturday End Zone, we take a break, come back with more in just a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
A smile is one of the first things most people notice. And for over a decade, Germany Dental has helped change smiles for thousands of people across Mississippi.
I was so embarrassed about my teeth that I never smiled. But now that I have dental implants and cosmetic veneers from Germany Dental, I can't stop smiling. My decision to see Dr. Germany literally changed my life.
Germany Dental, changing lives, one smile at a time. Call 601-825-4746 today.
Before digging in my yard, I always call 811 to have my utility lines marked, to avoid service interruptions or injury. As CenterPoint Energy says, it's better to call 811 now than 911 later. And if I suspect a gas leak, I leave the area immediately on foot and call CenterPoint Energy and 911 from a safe, remote location. Really?
CenterPoint Energy invests in its infrastructure to help keep you safe. CenterPoint Energy. Always there. You're more than a patient at KDMC. You're family. Worthy of kindness, compassion, and respect. King's Daughters Medical Center, caring for our community like no one else can.
Doorsman Tractor Package is here at Mississippi Ag. Choose a 3 Series John Deere tractor tailored to your horsepower needs and get all the attachments you require for the fall in one convenient package, including a loader, disc, and spreader starting at $315 a month. And as always, you get it all covered by our 10-year warranty. With 0% financing for 60 months, it's a deal that is sure to help you get your food plots ready for the season. Some restrictions apply. See dealer for details. Offer expires 10/31/19.
Mississippi Hunters, did you know that Vance Sporting Goods has the largest gun selection in the state? Vance carries the lines you know and respect, like Browning and Benelli. And we've got plenty of ammo in stock too. Drop by and check out our new duck hunting section, complete with decoys and accessories. You'll be happy you did. If it's guns, it's at Vance. Vance Sporting Goods.
777 Highway 468 in Brandon, or visit us online.
Owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, butcher block islands, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
You can't beat the best, and Bama is the best.
That's all any of y'all want to talk about is Alabama.
I wasn't coaching angry out there Saturday.
I think that's very big.
Jimbo, that's the worst coach in history.
Who's the second best team in the SEC East?
I got to go with Kentucky.
On, handoff, Williams right side, across the 10, to the 5, Travion Williams, up and over and in, and the Aggies win in overtime! Wow!
When I'm speaking facts. I'm just speaking facts.
Burrow dropping back, looking to throw and fires. It's intercepted! Intercepted by the Gators, and it's run back down the sideline by Brad Stewart! How about?
Here's the snap. Placement is down. Kick is up. Line drive kick, and it's good! Tigers win!
This is SEC Update, an inside look at Southeastern Conference football. Hello, everybody. God bless you, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Jason Crowder, your host. Last week in SEC ball, it was Joe Burrow who passed for 471 yards and 4 touchdowns. The last one to Justin Jefferson for 61 yards with 2:27 to play in the game that saw Texas storm back from a 20-7 halftime deficit, and the teams traded 7 touchdowns in the second half. The Tigers would go on to win 45-38. Coach Ed Orgeron spoke with Network TV following the game on Joe Burrow.
We trust him. We talked about going 4 minutes. Steve thought we could move the ball. When to put the ball in our quarterback's hands, he got the job done. I have to give credit to Texas. They played one heck of a ball game.
Sawyer Smith threw 2 touchdown passes in relief of injured quarterback Terry Wilson, who rushed for a touchdown before hurting his leg. And Kentucky rolled past Eastern Michigan 38-17 Saturday evening in Lexington. Head coach Mark Stoops talks about his offense.
Yeah, I thought we did some good things. We hurt ourselves with some penalties. We hurt it with another fumble going in. Just things we got to get cleaned up, but they're playing hard.
The Rebels got a big performance from Matt Corral, who finished 16 of 24 passing for 246 yards, including a pair of touchdown passes to Elijah Moore. Scotty Phillips added scoring runs of 1 and 26 yards and finished with a game-high 143 yards rushing, as Ole Miss finished with 483 yards of offense, beating Arkansas 31-17.
11-19 to go in the game. Ole Miss leads 17-10. Seam route caught on the left side by Elijah Moore. He makes one move to the 20, the 15, back to the middle of the field. Put him in the end zone. Touchdown, Ole Miss.
The voice of the Rebels, David Kellum, with the call from Learfield IMG College. Matt Corral spoke with the SEC Network on the field folling the game.
Our receivers did a good job of getting open and scrambling when they needed to. So I'm happy about that. There's little things that we got to fix, like just picking up the protection, me calling. They gave us a double edge pressure on both sides. And that was little keys I needed to look at, and that's something we got to fix, and we'll get on that.
Zach Wilson's 64-yard completion to Micah Simon set up a game-tying field goal with 1 second left in regulation in Knoxville. BYU went on to beat Tennessee 29-26 in the second overtime session. Tyson Williams scored from 5 yards out with help from his offensive lineman. Down on the Plains, true freshman Bo Nix threw for 207 yards and a touchdown as number 10 Auburn ran for 172 on the ground after amassing just 20 in the first half. And the Tigers defense dominated in a 24-6 victory over Tulane on Saturday evening. Gus Malzahn, the head coach of the Tigers, talks about his defense.
Well, the first half was pretty ugly offensively. I'm real proud of our defense. That's a good team. We were able to run the football in the second half, and really that was the key. We're still a work in progress, but I feel like we got a chance to be a good offense before it's all said and done. But hats off to our defense.
Down in the Swamp, Florida beats Tennessee Martin 45-0 at Florida Field.
Gators first down, the Skyhawks 35-yard line left hash. Now they bring him in motion. They fake it to Hammond, and Franks looks to throw. Got a wide open receiver. Quarantined, and a catch made. Touchdown! Tyree Cleveland got quarantined down there in the orange end zone, and it's now 16-0.
That's the voice of the Gators, Mick Hubert, from Learfield IMG College. Tua Tagovailoa passed for 3 touchdowns and ran for 25 yards for a 4th, all in the first half of the Crimson Tide's 62-10 victory over New Mexico State on a hot Saturday in Tuscaloosa.
Here's a 1st and 10. Football is at the Aggie 21. Bama going left to right, already leading 7-0. Here's Tua. Stands in, looks towards the right side. Jerry Jeudy, touchdown, Alabama. 21 yards, Tua Tagovailoa to Jerry Jeudy. I believe I've said that combination a few times.
The voice of the Crimson Tide, Eli Gold, with the call from Learfield IMG College. Trevor Lawrence threw for a touchdown pass and ran for a score, and number 1 Clemson at home won its record-tying 17th straight game with a 24-10 victory over number 12 Texas A&M Saturday afternoon. Kylan Hill rushed for 123 yards and 1 touchdown to lead Mississippi State to a 38-14 win over Southern Mississippi Saturday at Davis Wade Stadium.
Burnett hands it off Hill. He'll drag a man into the end zone. Touchdown, Mississippi State. Himby hit him but couldn't stop him, and Kylan gets into the end zone for the second time this year.
The voice of the Dogs, Neil Price, with a call from Learfield IMG College. DeAndre Swift ran for 2 touchdowns. Jake Fromm threw for 166 yards and a score. And number 3 Georgia broke loose in the second quarter for a 63-17 rout of FCS school Murray State on Saturday.
Pickens comes in motion from the left edge. Here's Swift with wide open space into the end zone on an angle. Touchdown, 10-yard run. Gliding the last 5 yards, DeAndre Swift, the junior from Philadelphia, makes it 27-7 with the point after pending.
The voice of Georgia, Scott Howard, with a call from Learfield IMG College. Missouri turned over the Mountaineers of West Virginia 3 times without committing one of its own, returning one of its interceptions for a touchdown in a 38-7 win over West Virginia in Columbia.
5 in the box. Bryant takes the snap. Pressure comes front side. Sidesteps a tackler. Rifles into the end zone. Touchdown, Missouri. Albert O on the receiving end. His second reception. Touchdown reception of the day.
The voice of the Tigers, Mike Kelly, with a call from Learfield IMG College. Vanderbilt's late fourth quarter touchdowns weren't enough in Saturday's loss to Purdue, 42-24 at Ross-Ade Stadium in West Lafayette, Indiana. And Ryan Helinski completed 24 of 30 passes for 282 yards and 2 touchdowns and ran for another score, leading the Gamecocks to a 72 win over Charleston Southern on Saturday in Columbia.
Helinski going to carry it himself. Ryan at the goal line and into the end zone. Touchdown, Carolina. Touchdown, Ryan Helinski. Welcome to Gamecock football. Number 3 from 4 yards out. The extra point could make it 14-0 Carolina.
The voice of the Gamecocks, Todd Ellis, with a call from Learfield IMG College. And that's a look back at SEC football from last week. Stay tuned. Coming up, we'll preview this weekend's matchups in a moment.
The best years of your life. That's how college is often described. That flash of time when you set out and start to figure out who and where you were born to be. Trailblazer. Risk taker, caretaker. The first time you feel a part of something bigger. And if you're lucky, those best years of your life, they last forever. Here, it just means more.
What year are we in now? 2019. So most of our guys were in grade school, when that happened. But what I remember from it, is we got the lining kicked out of our britches.
Underneath, Lattimore, touchdown!
I don't think it has a whole lot of bearing on the game. It's the players that line up between the white lines when the game kicks off, and it's 11 Alabama and there's 11 from South Carolina, and those guys will determine the outcome of the game. And obviously we got to do a great job of preparing our team.
Play fake, Garcia back, steps up, goes deep right side. Alshon Jeffrey, touchdown, South Carolina. Gamecocks win.
I don't know if you know what that means, but that means you get your butt kicked so bad you got no seam in the back of your pants. I remember that.
Left side, Jeffries got space and a touchdown. First time Greg McElroy has lost since 2001 in middle school.
The year was 2010. Nick Saban, in his 4th season with the Crimson Tide, had them coming off a national championship. In 2009, they were the number 1 team in the country, facing 19th-ranked South Carolina, then led by Steve Spurrier. The Gamecocks upset the Crimson Tide at Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia. 2:30 p.m. is the kickoff on CBS. Yes, CBS telecasted that game as well. Coming up this Saturday, a lot of differences between Alabama and South Carolina then versus now. Alabama still Alabama. South Carolina has taken a dip, although they did get back to winning ways a week ago, but against Charleston Southern. Does Will Muschamp and the Gamecocks have what it takes to upset the Crimson Tide a second time at Williams-Brice Stadium?
You got to beat Alabama. And at the end of the day, they're not going to beat themselves. They're well coached. They've got good players. but you've got to go beat Alabama. You got to have an aggressive mindset when you go into the ball game. You got to do the simple things really well in the game, and you can't start trying to play out of what you normally do. At the end of the day, there's going to be 4 to 6 plays in this game that are going to determine the outcome of the game, just like every other game we play. And we've got to outwork this football team for 60 minutes and be in position in those 4 to 6 plays to win the game. And that's no different than any other game, and don't treat it any different than any other game.
Gamecock head football coach Will Muschamp speaking with the media this past week. Alabama 2-0, South Carolina 1-1 coming into the contest. Several games involving SEC teams will kick off at 11 a.m. Mississippi State will lead the parade, hosting Big 12's Kansas State. This is a rematch from last season when the game was played in the Little Apple in Manhattan. The Bulldogs are 2-0, Kansas State 2-0. Kansas State with a new coach, Chris Klieman, who comes from North Dakota State. Yes, that's right, that North Dakota State. It's going to be a different look for the Wildcats. They run the football a little bit more effectively so far we've seen this season. Mississippi State a little susceptible to the run as they were a year ago. Doesn't mean that it's doomsday for the Bulldog defense, but it's going to be an interesting matchup between these two Power 5 teams. First time since 1999 that a non-conference Power 5 team has come to Starkville, Mississippi. MSU head coach Joe Moorhead spoke with the media this past week about the differences between Kansas State under their new coach from what they saw a season ago.
I think maybe schematically it's a little bit different, but I think in terms of mentality and philosophy and culture, they're not trying to trick you a bunch. They're not trying to create a bunch of diversion schematically in any of the phases, but they recruit tough, smart, disciplined kids who play with tremendous effort, and they're not going to beat themselves. So in terms of similarities between the two things, and I think that's probably why, Coach Klieman fit the mold of what Kansas State is accustomed to, and I think that's why it's been a good seamless transition for them.
ESPN will telecast this game from Davis Wade Stadium at Scott Field in Starkville. In Athens, Georgia, Arkansas State will take on the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia's 2-0, Arkansas State 1-1. This game will kick off on ESPN2 at 11 a.m. between the hedges at Sanford Stadium. Arkansas State head coach Blake Anderson will be coaching in this game, and he's one of the better men in this business. A fine Christian man, lost his wife, Wendy, to cancer a couple of weeks ago. Our prayers are with the Anderson family as he leads his football family out on the field against the Georgia Bulldogs. And Kirby Smart said this past week he had a lot of respect for Blake Anderson, and they have a lot of respect for this football team. Arkansas State could give Georgia some problems early on, but it should be all Bulldogs in Athens. In-state matchup in Knoxville. Tennessee at 0-2 will host 1-1 Chattanooga. 11 a.m. is the kickoff inside Neyland Stadium on the SEC Network, just off the banks of the Tennessee River. No, this isn't an in-state rivalry game, but Chattanooga has a little bit of hope. The way Georgia State was able to go in and handle Tennessee, especially in the second half. The way BYU last week was able to go in the second half and emotionally and mentally defeat Tennessee. This gives the Mocs a little bit of hope. Tennessee desperately needs a win. I think you'll see Tennessee play a little bit better this weekend at home. Colorado State defeating Arkansas a season ago at home. They have to travel to Fayetteville and take on an Arkansas team that's, like Tennessee, not one of the better teams in the SEC. Arkansas desperately needing a win this week against Colorado State after getting thumped on the road in Oxford at the hands of Ole Miss last Saturday. The Razorbacks are 1-1 on the year, 0-1 in the SEC. Colorado State 1-1 on the season. 3 p.m. is the kickoff from Reynolds Razorback Stadium in Fayetteville on the SEC Network. Speaking of the Ole Miss Rebels, they will be at home again hosting Southeastern Louisiana. The Lions come in at 1-0. Ole Miss off a win over Arkansas, 1-1 on the year. They are undefeated in the SEC and will remain that this week because they're playing a non-conference opponent. 3 p.m. is the kickoff on the SEC Network alternate channel from Vaught-Hemingway Stadium in Oxford. Lamar at 2-0 travels to 1-1 Texas A&M. 6 p.m. is the kickoff on ESPNU from Big Kyle Field in College Station, Texas. Well, everything's bigger in Texas, right? Kent State takes on Auburn on the Plains. The Tigers back at home again. They're 2-0 on the year. Kent State 1-1. ESPN2 will telecast them at 7 p.m. from Jordan-Hare Stadium. The Florida Gators will play their first SEC game, as well as Kentucky. This game will be played in the Bluegrass State at Kroger Field in Lexington, Kentucky. Kentucky's 2-0. Florida's 2-0, so something has to give this Saturday. 6 p.m. is the telecast on ESPN. It will be difficult for Mark Stoops and his troops. Out for the season is starting quarterback Terry Wilson, who left the Eastern Michigan game with a leg injury. This is what Mark Stoops had to say about his quarterback.
Obviously very disappointing for Terry Wilson, and greatly appreciate what Terry has done for us and the leadership that he's given this team and the way he's played the past year and 2 games. So it's been a long time since somebody's helped us win 12 out of the 15 starts that he had. So that's quite an accomplishment for Terry.
Gator head coach Dan Mullen talks about having to go on the road to play Kentucky, a team that beat his team in the Swamp a season ago.
Mark's done a great job of building that program up, and you can see they've built a great foundation. They have depth. They have experience. They play very physical style of football, both lines, both offensively and defensively along the line of scrimmage.
Northwestern State at 0-2 on the year. Most likely will be 0-3 when they leave Baton Rouge Saturday night. That's right, I said Saturday night. It's a 6:30 p.m. kickoff on the SEC Network from Tiger Stadium, otherwise known as Death Valley. LSU at 2-0 on the season looked really, really good offensively in the second half against Texas. LSU destroyed that Texas defense, just like they destroyed their first week opponent. And going to 2-0, this spread offense looks really, really good, and Joe Burrow looks really, really good and comfortable in it. Southeast Missouri State travels to Columbia, Missouri to take on the Tigers. Both teams at 1-1 on the year. 6:30 p.m. is the kickoff on the SEC Network alternate channel from Fairfield Field. Open this week, Vanderbilt, and they desperately need it. They're 0-2 on the season. Derek Mason and the Commodores trying to look to get back on track next week. This has been a preview of Week 3 in the SEC on SEC Update. I'm Jason Crowder reporting.
You're more than a patient at KDMC. You're family, worthy of kindness, compassion, and respect. King's Daughters Medical Center, caring for our community like no one else can.
The Outdoorsman Tractor Package is here at Mississippi Ag. Choose a 3 Series John Deere tractor tailored to your horsepower needs and get all the attachments you require for the fall in one convenient package, including a loader, disc, and spreader starting at $315 a month. And as always, you get it all covered by our 10-year warranty. With 0% financing for 60 months, it's a deal that is sure to help you get your food plots ready for the season. Some restrictions apply. See dealer for details. Offer expires 10/31/19.
With 2 boys, I know about suspicious odors. But CenterPoint Energy taught me something important. If I smell rotten eggs, it might be a gas leak. I should leave on foot immediately and call both CenterPoint Energy and 911 from a safe location. I also never store flammables like paint or gasoline near my natural gas appliances. One spark is all it takes to ignite fumes.
CenterPoint Energy provides tips to help you keep your family safe. CenterPoint Energy, always there.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, butcher block islands, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
Mississippi hunters, did you know that Vance Sporting Goods has the largest gun selection in the state? Vance carries the lines you know and respect, like Browning and Benelli. And we've got plenty of ammo in stock too. Drop by and check out our new duck hunting section, complete with decoys and accessories. You'll be happy, happy, happy you did. If it's guns, it's at Vance. Vance Sporting Goods.
777 Highway 468 in Brandon, or visit us online.
You really could have it all.
At Exit Realty,
We believe in making dreams
come true.
We believe
the home you want
is right there.
is right there.
And we'll help you find it.
Thoroughly trained, passionately committed
and always on your side. You can count on us
every step of the way. And you thought we just sold real estate.
We are Exit Realty. Think smart.
Think Exit.
And we welcome you back to the Saturday End Zone Show right here on the Spirit Media Network. As we welcome in now, we'll just call her the queen of everything media related. She's Laura Rutledge. I like that title, Queen of Everything. You think you can get away with that?
I guess. I certainly wouldn't call myself that, but if you want to, I'm all good with it. I appreciate it.
Well, I mean, ESPN, SEC Nation, Get Up, hosting the ESPYs. I mean, you got a long ledger there, so I don't really know how to refer to you except for Queen of Everything. So you've done a little bit of everything.
I'm thankful to have done whatever they'll let me do.
Well, okay, so college football season, we're going to week 3 today. And when you look back over the previous 2 weeks, what stood out to you? There's been some surprises. There's been some disappointments. What stood out to you the most?
Yeah, I think one of the things that early on really does stick out is the fact that we don't have preseason games in college football. And that's why, you saw some sloppiness. And everyone kind of got on that Miami-Florida game week 0 and said, oh, man, these two teams just weren't prepared. And then we kind of saw that really a lot of other teams weren't as prepared as maybe you would have expected too. And so it's just part of the game, and it's part of, certainly having some of these younger guys too try to get ready early. But I think the other thing, too, that has stood out to me so far is the fact that, we really do have amongst the best teams, you've got some really competitive teams, and specifically in the SEC. And I know people get tired of hearing about, Alabama and Georgia at the top, but LSU is right there in that mix. The win over Texas on the road is huge. LSU's deserving, in my opinion, of being in the top 5 at this point, and we'll see what happens, that first week of November when they clash against Alabama, if they're able to stay undefeated up until that point. But, that said, as much as it gets annoying to teams or fans of teams that, are not always in that mix or haven't gotten there yet in the playoff era, it does show you the strength at the top of the SEC, which I do think at the end of the day, when we're talking about the playoff and the potential to get, 2 teams from the same conference in again or something like that, the SEC is positioned quite well.
When you look outside the SEC from the first couple of weeks, I've asked this question to a couple other folks, so I got to ask it to you while I got you. Michigan in 2 overtimes against Army, and then the reaction after the game. Is the reaction warranted or not warranted with them jumping into the stands like they just knocked off Ohio State? What did you make of that?
Yeah, I'm all for celebrating, and I don't think we should ever limit college players especially from that, because this is the best time of their lives to be able to celebrate and have great joy. That said, that celebration was over the top. And I do understand why they were relieved to win. Army's a really good team. I mean, the triple option's hard to take on no matter what, especially week 2 of the season. But I just think, Michigan does have bigger issues. And I'm not ready to totally close the door on Michigan at this point. I could see them figuring it out, but it just seems like their offense is in 3rd gear instead of kind of hitting that next gear, which we expected them to do with Shea Patterson being under Josh Gaddis, who they brought in from Alabama. I really thought that they'd be kind of off to the races to start the year, and that maybe they'd run into some issues when they face tougher opponents. But I will say this, there's cause for concern. So while I'm not ready to write them off yet, and Ohio State looks much better, I do think that they have a lot to correct. And for that reason, it seems obnoxious to have that type of celebration following a win over a team that you barely beat and you should have beat handedly.
Tennessee. And let's go back to the SEC. 0-2 for the first time since, 88? I don't even want to tell you how old I was in 88. But,
that's the year I was born, so it's been a long time.
What do you make of what's going on there, Laura? Because, you could say Jeremy Pruitt inherited just a nightmare of a situation. Do we need to go far back to Greg Schiano and how the fan base acted when he was going to be the head coach? And then when you dug deeper into the files, found out, hey, it wasn't as egregious as we thought it was. And, there's a lot of people that say, hey, Tennessee fans have only themselves to blame. When you look at the situation that he's inherited, is it he inherited a bad situation, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, I mean, I am truly shocked by what's going on at Tennessee. And having spent time around that program during the spring and just kind of seeing the optimism, seeing, honestly, the athleticism, the talent that they have. It's not that they have a completely untalented team. They certainly don't have the depth that you might see at some other SEC programs, but they shouldn't be this bad. And that's where you kind of look around and you say that this has got to be between the ears of these players. And, that does start with the coaches. So I've always been a big fan of Jeremy Pruitt. even back when he was defensive coordinator for Georgia and, of course, then Alabama. I am shocked by this. It's just mind-boggling to me. And so you look around, too, on that staff, and you say, my goodness, you've got Chaney on the staff who's got a wealth of experience. You've got T. Martin. And at the end of the day, you got Philip Fulmer, who's very involved. So something is just, obviously wrong with the way that all of this is going and maybe wrong with the way that things are being communicated. From when you look at all that and you kind of take it all into consideration, I would say that, yes, some people will point to that Schiano situation and the way that it all went down. And, maybe Jeremy Pruitt wasn't the first choice. They went after, multiple other guys. I mean, Mike Leach, they went after Gundy at Oklahoma State. There were plenty of others before they got to Pruitt, but that shouldn't be a reason why they're losing these games. And that's where I think, taking kind of the fandom out of it, you just have to examine this closer and say that they've got to get this fixed quickly. And I'm not sure, if at this point it is salvageable at this point in the season, which is crazy to say because we're only on week 3 here, but it just seems like, how is this going to get better? And you feel for those players who've committed to be there. I don't know. It is just a mind boggler to me.
It seems to be permeating throughout the fan base too. It's almost like, well, here we go again. And I heard it framed this week, sometimes it's just not the right cocktail. And Jeremy Pruitt, heck of a coach, we all believe that. I don't think there's anybody out there that would say Jeremy Pruitt is not a great
defensive coordinator.
Right.
I think that's maybe one of the key things.
When you look outside the rest of the SEC, okay, so dark horses, I know we're only 2 weeks in here, but this is why we do this. Dark horses in the West or in the East. Mississippi State look pretty good. Granted, we got a small sample size because of who they played through 2 games. Mississippi State looked pretty good. Is there anybody else? LSU, of course, looked very, very dominant in their win against Texas. But anybody else not named LSU and maybe Mississippi State that jumps out at you in the West that might be a dark horse?
Man, you look at the West and it's hard to see anybody kind of past the teams that you named, which is tough. But I would say Auburn still. I mean, I still think, the win over Oregon to start the year, and look, they even had some kinks they were working out even last week too. And you kind of say, okay, man, maybe they kind of escaped it with that Oregon win by the skin of their teeth. But that win is going to be huge. I mean, that other than LSU's win at Texas is probably the best win in all of college football to start the year, and it really was huge. So I think they're going to have some growing pains, Auburn is, but I don't know that those growing pains lead to losses, which is why I would still consider them a contender in the West, and I wouldn't be surprised if Auburn's that team in the West that really spoils somebody's party. And by somebody, I mean an LSU or an Alabama, because, they could do that and they could be that team that does that. And so I specifically Alabama, I mean, my goodness, if Alabama gets all the way to the Iron Bowl and somehow loses to Auburn, we're talking about a scenario that has shades of a couple years ago where Auburn ended up in the SEC championship game that almost was, it was a play-in game to the college football playoff at that point. So who knows? I think they're better than some people thought, while still having some things they need to work on.
In the East, it's not as easy as Georgia and everybody else, like it's been the last couple of years. Florida certainly looks much improved under Dan Mullen. That LSU and Florida game on October 12th looms large. That's going to be a heck of a game if both teams can stay undefeated. But it's not as easy as Georgia and everyone else. It seems like it's Georgia and then Florida, and then maybe who's the third team in your mind, if there is somebody that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's Kentucky, and we see Florida against Kentucky this week 3, and I do think that, that's going to be a huge one. Part of the reason why you kind of have to scratch your head about Kentucky, which stinks, is that Terry Wilson is now out for them. So to not have their starting quarterback, but I tell you what, that's another thing, kind of back to your first question that stuck out to me over these first couple weeks of college football, is that some of these backup quarterbacks that have come out, they happen at USC, you think, oh man, what are we going to do? We don't have our quarterback. And then all of a sudden the backup comes in, you're like, oh, this guy's not too bad. So maybe that's what we'll see with Kentucky. Who knows? We'll have to, kind of, that remains to be seen. But yeah, right now I would sort of point to them. Missouri, to me, I was shocked that they lost their opener, and I just think they're a team that I thought was going to be a lot better. I had kind of picked them as my dark horse in the East. I still think that that's possible for them. I think it's going to take them some time, maybe to get there. And, I'm a little shocked that Kelly Bryant hasn't been better, although I will say, his numbers have been pretty good. It really hasn't been on him. But either way, they're a team, too, that I still wouldn't totally count out. But, yeah, I would look at that game. I mean, the game's in Lexington. Florida's going to have to go on the road. Obviously, they had a good game this past weekend against a much lesser opponent, but they showed certainly some issues week 0, so we'll see if they fully got that corrected against better competition.
She's Laura Rutledge with ESPN, SEC Nation, SEC Network. We just call her the queen of everything. She does everything there with the network. Okay, so Alabama, everybody's asking, are there chinks in the armor? Haven't seen any, of course. How are you going to base that 2 weeks into the season? You really won't know until week 5, week 6, maybe. Any chinks in the armor, any concern for Alabama that sticks out to you with some of the players that maybe graduated? They get a lot of the great players back, but anything concern you about the champs right now, or the runners-up last year in the college football playoff?
Yeah, I would still point to that linebacker spot in Dylan Moses, and Shane Lee and company have done a nice job, filling that void. But to your point, it's just been against competition that you really can't tell what it really means so far. And we'll know maybe a little bit more against South Carolina, because they do have to go on the road this week. That's a little bit tougher. It's going to be hot as all get out, although they're used to the heat in Tuscaloosa too. I will say, there really is nowhere hotter than Columbia, South Carolina this time of year. So it's gonna be that one's going to be a scorcher. But that said, look, unfortunately for South Carolina, they are just they just do not have the depth, I would say, or the talent to keep up with Alabama for an entire football game. But anyway, the interesting thing about the linebacker spot and filling the hole of Dylan Moses is, to your point, we're really not going to know really where this team is until they face LSU, maybe until maybe they face Georgia, which, that's not even a game that's on the schedule. And so I think for Alabama, they're once again in this kind of limbo, which they were actually probably in some ways last year, and we just didn't realize it. They're trying to win a national championship or bust every single year, and so are they good enough to do that? And when you think about that and who they may have to go up against, there are some good college football teams out there. Clemson, obviously, has been dominant. They continue to be dominant. LSU, I would put in that mix. Ohio State, I would put in that mix. Georgia, certainly. So there are so many of these teams that I do think could maybe give Alabama a run for their money. I'm not saying Alabama loses to them. I'm not saying that they don't repeat, because they're still my pick. Well, I guess it's not repeat. Look at us. We're acting like Alabama won the national
We're used to it. We're accustomed to it. We're accustomed to them.
No, we're all brainwashed over here. But anyway, I do think that they'll win the national championship this year. I have them as my pick to do so. I think the revenge factor is real, and I do think their offense is just so stellar that it's going to be hard to hold them down. But yeah, I think the weaknesses could come out to haunt them, down the stretch at that point. And really, I would, like I said, just point to the defense and that middle linebacker spot.
Kind of to your point about all the different teams that you could say, hey, this team's great. Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, list goes on and on. How soon do you think we get to 8? Because that's the conversation. How soon do we get there?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. It could be sooner if we see 2 SEC teams in again. I think that's what really puts pressure on the committee, or at least the college football playoff people. It's not really the committee that would make that decision to go ahead and expand. And the problem with expansion that I think is almost underreported, because look, on its surface, expansion makes perfect sense. Wouldn't we all like to see more teams have more of a problem, or more opportunity? But you do open up such a can of worms if you think about potentially eliminating the importance, or even just altogether eliminating a conference championship game. Think about the SEC championship game these last few years. They felt like national championships. The SEC alone, if we're just talking about them, make so much money off of it. Not everybody's conference championship is created equal, so they're a little different other places. But the Big 12, creates a conference championship game that that has, launched a team into the college football playoff. It's been Oklahoma, but they have been in the playoff as a result, and probably a couple times would have been in anyway. But, I just think it's going to be really hard to get everybody to agree to this and agree to a scenario because of those reasons, not to mention the fact that we've got, student athletes who are not getting paid. And so you open up that whole can of worms as well if you're going to ask them to play an extra game or a couple extra games. So there are just so many problems with all of that. And still, that being said, I think if you're rooting for expansion, then root for two teams from the same conference to get into the college football playoff again, because that's really going to make some people mad and really could ignite more of that discussion, or at least put more pressure on the college football playoff people to make that adjustment.
Okay, before I let you go, for folks that may not know, we're talking to Laura Rutledge with ESPN, SEC Nation, SEC Network. The queen of everything is what we've now decided her future name is going to be. So when folks turn on the TV and they're like, "Where's Laura?" They may not know. They have figured it out yet.
Yeah.
Where's Laura? Why isn't she on Get Up? Why isn't she on SEC Nation? I'll let you tell everybody where you've been lately.
Well, I will be back soon, but of course we are waiting on The Birth, which is coming hopefully soon. I'd be thrilled if it would come any day now. Being, almost 9 months pregnant is not really a lot of fun, but we're waiting on the birth of our first child, who is a girl, and we're so very excited to welcome her into our family and into just really the whole SEC and college football and ESPN family and really just, everybody. I've loved getting to know so many fans over the past few years, just kind of feeling like, we're all kind of part of this big sports family, and so she'll be part of that too, and we're pumped about that. But yeah, we did not time it very well, and sometimes God has other plans, and you say, all right, here we go. So that's what we're dealing with. But thankfully, everyone's been just so wonderful about supporting us during this time, and it's been different. But the one thing that's been funny for me is that I can't even remember the last time that I've just sat in my house on a Saturday like everybody else and watched games. And a lot of times I will have hosted SEC Nation, so I'm traveling to get back, and I'm trying to get the games loaded up on a plane or on the radio in my car, and it was really cool last week to be able to just sit there and watch games. So I have tried to look on the bright side of, having to be out when I want to be out there with the guys, of being able to sit here and watch games like a regular fan. That is a true gift. I mean, what a wonderful gift college football is for all of us.
And I was going to say, it's got to be weird for you too to be sitting there in the living room saying, "Wait a minute. I'm supposed to be there. I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be there."
Definitely a little weird. It's a short period of time, all things considered, so I'll take it.
Well, we pray the best for the birth of your child. Congratulations to you and your husband and your entire family. It's going to be great, and we wish you. We hope to see you back soon, and I know that's the plan in the works right now. So appreciate what you do for college football and taking some time with us here on the Saturday End Zone.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Smile is one of the first things most people notice. And for over a decade, Germany Dental has helped change smiles for thousands of people across Mississippi.
I was so embarrassed about my teeth that I never smiled. But now that I have dental implants and cosmetic veneers from Germany Dental, I can't stop smiling. My decision to see Dr. Germany literally changed my life.
Germany Dental, changing lives, one smile at a time. Call 601-825-4746 today.
You're more than a patient at KDMC. You're family, worthy of kindness, compassion, and respect. King's Daughters Medical Center, caring for our community like no one else can.
Outdoorsman Tractor Package is here at Mississippi Ag. Choose a 3 Series John Deere tractor tailored to your horsepower needs and get all the attachments you require for the fall in one convenient package, including a loader, disc, and spreader starting at $315 a month. And as always, you get it all covered by our 10-year warranty. With 0% financing for 60 months, it's a deal that is sure to help you get your food plots ready for the season. Some restrictions apply. See dealer for details. Offer expires 10/31/19.
Mississippi Hunters, did you know that Vance Sporting Goods has the largest gun selection in the state? Vance carries the lines you know and respect, like Browning and Benelli. And we've got plenty of ammo in stock too. Drop by and check out our new duck hunting section, complete with decoys and accessories. You'll be happy, happy, happy you did. If it's guns, it's at Vance. Vance Sporting Goods.
777 Highway 468 in Brandon, or visit us online.
Before digging in my yard, I always call 811 to have my utility lines marked, to avoid service interruptions or injury. As CenterPoint Energy says, it's better to call 811 now than 911 later. And if I suspect a gas leak, I leave the area immediately on foot and call CenterPoint Energy and 911 from a safe, remote location. Really?
CenterPoint Energy invests in its infrastructure to help keep you safe. CenterPoint Energy. Always there.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, butcher block islands, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
What a show today, and we appreciate all of you joining us here on the Saturday End Zone Show. Thanks again to Tim Brando, national sports commentator with Fox Sports, as well as Laura Rutledge with ESPN, SEC Network, and SEC Nation, and Jason Crowder, sports director at WFCA and with the Mississippi State Football Radio Network. What a show today. Thanks for hanging out with us. Tune in next Saturday and every Saturday from here on out at 9 a.m. Facebook, Twitter, our YouTube channel, online at spiritmedianet.com, as well as our Roku channel, Spirit Live. We ask that you download it today and check it out. For our producer, Logan Campbell, and all of our guests, I'm Jason Scarborough. We'll see you next weekend. Enjoy the games today from all of us here at the Spirit Media Network.